two things happening today. The first one is Ad's come back to talk about a new clinical trial we're running. I assumed when I wrote this it was on ABPA, and it is, so I was right. So he's going to tell us about that. That's starting now, and we need some help with it. And the interesting thing about we've got this new grant from the BRC, which you might have heard of in the news, sort of late last year, where we've been given a lot of money to do research. So that BRC money is a sort of separate bit, and it's donated by NIHR, if I remember rightly. And the important bit about that is we won't get the money unless we involve the patients intimately in the research. So this is a change. Before it was a good idea to involve patients and carers in research. Now they've got to do it, and it's a high priority. So hence AZAD. Okay. And then after a break, we're going to talk a little bit about an option if you're unable to eat, swallow food, drink, anything, and you're losing weight uncontrollably. There's an option where you can have a tube fitted, which the food will go directly into your stomach and you can maintain weight. It's only taken up by about half a dozen people in the whole service, but it is an option. And Neil will be along later, who's a patient who's had this done, and he's going to introduce the subject. I've got some slides as well, but he's going to talk about it and he can answer questions and things like that. Okay, so first up is Azad. Thank you. Oh, and we're all live on Facebook again. But there's the camera, and it's looking this way, so you can't see. Cheers.
Thank you, Graham. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming in. And what I want to do this afternoon is we are in discussion with a pharma company to set up a new clinical trial for patients who are suffering from asthma with fungal sensitization, and is commonly known as ABPA. So the title of the study is a double-blinded placebo-controlled parallel group study to evaluate the efficacy and safety of repeated doses of a study drug in participants with severe asthma with fungal sensitization. The pharma company developed this drug, which is a wonderful drug for treatment of asthma, but they're also thinking the drug is quite useful for patients who are their asthma cannot be controlled by conventional treatment for asthma, because their asthma also is associated with fungal infection and fungal sensitization. And the aim is to provide information on the efficacy, how the drug is working, and the safety and tolerability by the patients, and the bioavailability of the drug inside the bloodstream of patients with allergic bronchopulmonary Aspergillosis, ABPA, and severe asthma with sensitization. What we know is the data from damaged tissue is associated with, in ABPA patients and SAP patients, suggesting rising level of compound called interleukin 33, which is, it's like a hormone, but it is called interleukin 33 level at the baseline. And one of the primary objectives of the study is to test the hypothesis that because of the cellular damage, conventionally what we do for antifungal treatment for aspergillosis is to attack the fungus directly. This treatment is modifying your body's immune system in order to tackle the reaction to the fungal sensitization. This is specifically because patients with asthma who are sensitized to the fungus, they are more likely to be reacting to that sensitization by the fungal infection, rather than the fungal infection is causing the overwhelming effect. So that is modifying, it's kind of, we call it immunomodulators. In the past meeting, I was asked whether the difference between different treatments for aspergillosis, different fungal therapies available, and what is the difference between them. So I just went back and looked historically. what we have is, in the bottom of this pyramid, is we have the first generation of antifungal drugs, starting with nystatin, amphotericin B. Perhaps most of you are familiar with those two, flucytosine and micronazole, and mycofungin and clascofungin. These are all the first generation of antifungals. Then after this, a second generation of antifungal drugs came into the market, where they called lipid formulations, which had reduced toxicity, and also those drugs which improves their structure, the structural changes, and they're more safer, they are more tolerable for patients. The third generation and the future generation are a new wave of drugs coming into the market. And this clinical trials we're talking about is one of those new generation of drugs who are targeting infection in a different way. And also, we spoke to before on other drugs which like Synexis, 078. There's new clinical trials which we are hoping we will be hosting here, and Sidara's CD101. Also, there are other new formulations which is gradually starting to emerge and going through clinical trials. That's why clinical trials are so important in getting these drugs into the market to be available to patients. And I was also asked how these drugs are working. So, in order to, apologies, it's quite a busy slide, but just to gear your attention to different drugs works on different parts of fungal. If you imagine, this is the cell, inside the cell, or the fungal cell, and inside the cell they've got cell wall. Some of the drugs are working on the cell walls, and some of the drugs are working within the structure which are associated with the integrity of the cell or viability of the cell. So they kill the cell in different ways and in different interactions. So that's why you have got so many different drugs, and all the pharma companies or the different biotech companies, they try and they compete with each other in order to design and develop a new drug where it works better, because all antifungal drugs so far we know is associated with some degree of resistance developing, or patients are not responding very well, and we don't understand why some patients responding better to some drugs while others don't respond very well. So that's why it's a good idea to have multiple target. So if you are not responding to one type of drug, there's an alternative, so you can try alternative. That's why the drugs are working on different aspects of the fungi. This new compound, which is an immunomodulator, is associated with interleukin receptor 1, and it works by binding to this receptor. And what is this receptor is associated with a family of receptors. I'll just show you a picture in a minute. It's a family of receptors. It's called ST2, and it was originally discovered in 1929, and it was called orphan receptor because receptors are proteins. It's just like a lock. For a lock to open it, you need a key, and they didn't know where the key was at the time. So the key was IL-33, and then it was discovered much later in 2005. And this IL-33 is quite important in inflammation and how the body reacts to infection. ST2 receptor is a participant inflammatory process, and it is associated with your immune cells, it's called helper cells, which is part of your body's white blood cell population. And this ST2 receptor is a marker for differentiation. So your body reaction to foreign bodies, to infection or inflammation is quite organized in certain ways. So you have got a stimulant, and from the stimulant, the body changes, and these cell types are changing and transformed to different types, and they release different types of hormones and cytokines. So ST2 is associated with asthma, pulmonary fibrosis, collagen vascular diseases, and septic shock. So it's not unique to asthma. And serum level of ST2 receptor can, in patients with bronchial asthma, is quite significant. So these are being observed in patients. What I want to show you in this slide is, if you imagine this is a receptor and it has got two portions. This is the cell surface. That's inside the cell. You've got an adaptive protein. And outside the cell, you have got a protein like water lilies staying out on top of the surface. And these are where foreign agents or fungi or bacteria will bind to, or other hormones will bind to. And when they bind to, they create a cascade of reactions inside the cell. So R33 is normally inside the nucleus, and it is not active. So what happens is, when we have got infection or inflammation, we've got a compound inside the cells that got caspase 1 that cleaves, that chops up this inactive pro-IL-33 to become active. And once become active, it will bind to the receptor, and the receptor is like a dimer. And once become activated, so this will cause a cascade of reaction, and the cell will respond. The cell either respond by secreting more hormones or chemical compounds, and then attracts other inflammatory cells to the site of infection, and that causes swelling inside the bronchus and inside the lungs, and that's what causes exacerbation and what causes the patient to react to that infection. Maybe we could just show a clip from I have got a clip from YouTube just to explain what I mean by that.
The adaptive immune system is elegantly choreographed to recognize and attack viruses and other pathogens that are foreign to the body.
Can you hear it? Get the sound.
That's as loud as I could get it, I think.
First, let's take a look at how a virus infects the cell. The virus injects its genome into the host cell and activates the cell's internal machinery. Because the virus is inside the cell membrane seems to protect the virus from detection by the host. However, the human body has a strategy to survey even the inside of its own cells, an intricate mechanism in which cells destinies in their own contents and displays these contents on the outside of their cell membrane. This display is accomplished using the
This is the receptor inside the cells.
HLA. HLA proteins are on the surface of cells, displaying samples of the proteins those cells contain, analogous to the barcode on the outside packages of the grocery store. As part of the human immune system, T cells are designed to identify those HLA display proteins that are not part of the normal cell, and therefore indicate the presence of a pathogen inside the cell. T cells circulate in the bloodstream with proteins on their surface termed T cell receptors. These receptors interact with or scan the HLA display proteins or barcodes looking for a match. The body is equipped with an immense number of T cells, each one displaying only one kind of T cell receptor, with the purpose that the variation in the repertoire will allow the identification of many kinds of diverse pathogens. Given T cell receptor does fit well with an HLA display protein, it signals the adaptive immune system to spring into action and mount an immune response. 3 crucial steps occur. First, while still bound to the HLA display protein, the T cell goes through clonal expansion, making millions of copies of itself so that more T cells can lock onto other infected cells on the same display. Next, a subset of these T cells change phenotype and become cytotoxic, or killing T cells. The equivalent T
I'll just stop there. Going to the next clip, which shows how the body reacts to this is the same. That's the receptor on the surface of the cells, and the other cells attached to it and recognizes that infection, and then they will attack it. So that's R33 is one type of the cytokine according to this family of cytokines. So if that is a cell surface, then these proteins which are projected out from outside, they form pores inside the cells, and then it facilitates for viruses or for infection to go inside the cell. Okay.
So why is that recognition process important?
That recognition process is important for the body's system, because when we are attacked by a fungus or a virus or bacteria, on the cell surface, they will be recognized by the immune system. And what happens is we have got different types of cells who recognizes this type of antigen, and they will bring in other killer cells, and the killer cells actually attack the infected cells, so it will cleanse body from the infection. That's one way we do it. Second, certain types of antigen or viruses, once you have recognized it, you develop immunity. Once you develop immunity, you maybe develop immunity for life. So you have got vaccinations in early childhood, and that is lasting as long as you live. And these are important for developing vaccines. So that's recognition, which is another way of recognizing these antigens, quite important for your bodies to fight infection. For example, in TB, if you had vaccination, a small amount of that antigen will evoke a cellular cascade, and which provide you immunity as well. Let's go back to the.
So the thing with the identification, what you've effectively got is your body is full of cells that will kill anything. So we have to stop them doing that, except in the one case where there's a virus or a bacterium or whatever. But if that fungus doesn't go away, like in ABPA, those cells will just carry on and carry on and carry on and cause more and more and more inflammation.
Exactly.
And that's why we have this problem with inflammation, essentially.
That's exactly, because the chronic inflammation is if you don't challenge it, because the mechanism in chronic inflammation, the body's mechanism is kind of broken to a certain extent. And what happened is it is not overcoming that challenge. And that's why inflammation is persisting and is chronic, and it doesn't resolve in time. So if you get like a flu, you will recover after a short period of time. But like if you suffer from rheumatoid arthritis, for example, you suffer from, perhaps in your lifetime, you suffer from inflammation, because the body cannot overcome that kind of inflammation. But what we have now, immunomodulators do, is control the growth of those cells, so they keep the inflammation at an acceptable level, so you can live with it. It may not eradicate the inflammation entirely, but they will control it to a certain extent, or they improve your body's immune system in order to control it, to keep it in check. And that is the function of immunomodulators and immunotherapy now.
So in the case of if it's not ABPA, it's CPA.
Yeah.
You don't want to control the you don't want to modulate the immune system because you want them to attack.
To attack or
the infection.
The infection itself.
Because there's not
different.
there's not widespread scarring. It's in one place.
Exactly. In asthma, because that is a model of a continued inflammation. So far, we have not been able to cure asthma in entirety. We will be able to control it or prevent the attacks happening, but we haven't been successful in curing asthma. And in a fungal sensitization situation is a similar situation. We need to control the inflammation, and we need to control it by helping the body to control that inflammation.
Presumably, immunomodulators would increase your risk of catching other infections or suffering from other infections, I guess, to some extent.
It depends on the target. It depends where it does target. I mean, because there are different immunomodulators acting on different cell types and different sub-cell types.
Yeah. And
that's why the more specific you are, the better it is, and that's not necessarily the case for all immunomodulators.
Yeah. Okay.
Some immunomodulators in the past used to be, yes, it increased your chance of getting infection if you were treated for rheumatoid arthritis, for example.
So the immunosuppressants, which have been used for severe inflammatory conditions, would fall into that category of causing a fair degree of risk of other problems.
The immunosuppressants, all generation of immunosuppressors, although they worked on a kind of different level, and they were reducing your body's immune system, so you were vulnerable to infection. That's why people used to give prophylactic antibiotic to those people. So this is just another slide to showing you how the IL-33 working on the surface of the CD4 positive Th cells, which is T cells, and is associated with that transformation of the type of Th1 to Th2, and Th2 once it's activated will cause release of all those cytokines. I'll probably skip this one. So the clinical trial we are hoping to develop is we look at patients to recruit 40 patients. Probably we need to recruit 45 patients in order to get to 40 patients who will be able to complete the treatment. We will have patients identified in ABPA clinics or new referrals, and they will go through the screening, and they will have a second visit, so we will check for their inclusion and exclusion criteria, and they will be randomized. They will be randomized into two groups. One group will be receiving the study drug, and because this is a new drug in this type of therapy, we need to compare it to standard care. And standard care could be any treatment which your physician or your consultant prescribe the normal standard medication to. So we need to compare to that. And those patients will be given a placebo. Instead of being given a study drug, will be given a dummy drug, which doesn't have any effect on the body per se. And the patients will be dosed. They come back on visit 3, will be given the dose 1. Then they will come back after 4 weeks, week 4, visit 4 after 2 weeks, visit 4 as a study visit, and they will be given another injection at visit 5, which is dose 2, and another injection at visit 6, which is dose 3. And that is the treatment for both groups of patients, and then they will be followed up for the study visit week 12 and week 24. The total duration for each patient in the trial is 28 weeks. This is quite a nicely designed study we're hoping to refine and we're hoping to get feedback from you to tell us what is the challenge of being in such a trial, a clinical trial. The objective is to measure the activity and efficacy of the study drug compared to the placebo. On bioavailability, also at the same time, we need to check what is the level of the effective dose inside the body, and also looking at biomarkers of the inflammation. So to see if these biomarkers have been controlled, is your body responding to this treatment, and that's compared to the standard care. In order to do that, we need to check your blood, your eosinophil cell, which is one type of your cell type, white blood cell type, and also change from the baseline and exhale nitric oxide over time. Perhaps most of you had the respiratory function test, and most of you had forced expiratory volume once, you blowing out your breath. One other measure is measuring the nitric oxide from breath, and that is an indicator for the amount of tissue damage in the lungs. The secondary objectives is looking at PK level. PK is pharmacokinetics, is how the drug is working and affecting the targets over 3 doses. So we're looking at therapeutic levels, we're looking at the bioavailability and serum level of the soluble ST2. ST2, as I mentioned, that's the marker for inflammation. And evaluating level of specificity of anti-study drugs. So unfortunately, because this drug is based on antibody, the body can also produce antibodies against the drug. So we need to make sure that the body does not produce antibody against the drug and make the drug ineffective. And incidence of titer of the serum antibody drugs will be checked in the body and in the patient's blood, and evaluating the health status of participants. And we would like to use questionnaires. There's 2 different questionnaires: this asthma control questionnaires and quality of life questionnaire. So it's not only checking the therapeutic effect on physiological level, but also checking the value of the drug overall in your general well-being and the patient's well. We're also looking at the lung functions and to see if the lung functions have changed throughout the period of treatment, and also looking at the safety. So we monitor the patients to check if the drug is safe and it is tolerable, and it is not associated with too horrendous or too much side effects. So we will be looking out for any adverse reactions to the drug, and also when you come back to those visits, we'll check the blood to make sure that all liver functions and renal functions are working okay, and also checking the heart with ECG. And one of the methods we were looking at is 24-hour Holter monitoring. And that is the patient's it's a device. The patient takes it. It will check the blood. I don't know if anybody had it, and then they will come back the day after to the hospital, and we will read out all the data throughout the 24 hours, and looking for unusual pattern in the way the heart functioned during that time. We also, because this is a clinical trial, we want to maximize the use of all the clinical data. So we're looking at exploratory objectives and endpoints. We're looking at the body's reactions on all the cytokines or the hormones produced in the sputums, also in the blood. We're looking at the fungal sensitization, so we're looking at all different parameters to make sure the drug is effective. The inclusion criteria is male and female over the age of 18. They should weigh more than 50 kilograms with a body mass index between 90 to 35. And female participants with a childbearing age should be using an effective method of contraception, because we cannot, it's a study drug, we cannot allow a pregnant woman to participate because of the harm to the fetus. We also the participant must be able to provide consent. We're looking for asthmatic patients who bronchial asthma of 12 months or more, and asthma treated with long-standing corticosteroids or long-acting beta-2 agonists for at least 4 months, we're looking at certain parameters of the lung function, so like bronchodilators if forced expiratory volume 1, nitric oxides above 25, and health questionnaires we talked about during this one, and the blood levels. These criteria are not very restrictive, so we have got some leeway when the patient is not meeting those in the first visit, they can meet those in the second visit.
So is the cut-off point 65, did you say there? 65 years old?
That 65 years old, which is, you might consider why we have chosen 65, not above 65. That is something perhaps we should be exploring why it is a cutoff 65. Why not 75 or 80, and why the cutoff? Because we are still in discussion to develop this trial, this question. And when we come to exclusion criteria, that's probably become apparent because patients over the age of 65, they're more likely to be suffering from other type of illness, which may exclude them from the study. And ABPA patients should demonstrate history of ABPA for 12 months or more with total serum level, and positive test for serum-specific IgE for fungal infection in Aspergillosis, and documented history, and that's the clinical decision. The exclusion criteria is quite extensive. This is quite wordy slide, and this is concurrent respiratory disease that are excluded. So, over the age of 65, people will be suffering from different types of infection, inflammation, and different types of. They have other illnesses, may have other illnesses. That's not necessarily the case for everybody, but it's more likely that people will have other illnesses. Because we want to test how this drug is working, we're trying to eliminate the effect of other infections or other inflammations, which may hide the effect of this drug. That's why it is excluded. And say patients with already respiratory diseases, chronic respiratory disease will be excluded. Patients who have chronic or non-respiratory infections are excluded. And if there's a serious infection within 8 weeks of treatment or enrollment, will be excluded. And evidence of poorly controlled chronic medical conditions will be excluded also. Any cardiovascular disease will be excluded because there might be a little risk of the drug affecting the heart.
So this study then, this treatment, you're including asthma and ABPA. Does that infer that the treatment itself has some form of specificity for a fungal infection?
It is directed at the mechanism by which asthmatic patient react to the fungal.
To a fungal, so it's the SAFS ABPA.
SAFS ABPA. Yeah.
So for those who are not like Xolair, which was roughly similar, it was an antibody type intervention for asthmatics. This is distinct from that because it's fungal specific.
It is fungal specific
Okay.
reaction. Say different. And current history of suicidal ideation or past history of suicide attempts, lymphoma, leukemia, or any kind of malignancy will be excluded. If somebody had a high level of liver enzymes, they'll be excluded as well. Bilirubin is another liver-produced part of body's bilirubin, which is stain, which is the kind of the secretion, which is excreted from liver normally, and current chronic history of liver disease are excluded. Treatment with biologic agents, other immunomodulators are excluded. Live virus or bacterial vaccines before from 30 days before the screening, and immunomodulators or suppressive also excluded, but not limited to cyclophosphamide cytotoxic. Apologies, these are quite technical words, and the participants have received investigational drugs. So if somebody who's on other clinical trials and receiving medications from the clinical trial, until they come off that trial, they will be excluded.
What about smoking? Oh, there you go.
There you go. So smokers are excluded, and when we had a discussion, Professor Deming also raised the question: what happens if somebody is not a smoker but they are marijuana smokers? They'll be excluded.
What about people who live with smokers? Are they excluded? Yeah.
Not necessarily. We haven't said that.
Right.
So
it's not down there, is it?
Right.
Okay.
Within 2 years. So smoking history, current smokers or former smokers with a smoking history of 10 packs, say 20 years of smoke. So clinically significant multiple severe drug allergies also excluded. So it is kind of narrowing down the type of patients we need for the clinical trial.
And by alcohol, you don't mean any alcohol, you mean alcohol abuse of some sort, presumably?
Yes, that's right.
So you must have a measure of that.
I don't think it is not advisable to take alcohol while
during the
clinical trial.
Yeah.
But obviously people, it is not really advisable to take alcohol with any drug whatsoever.
Yeah. But this is before that. This is an exclusion criteria.
Yeah. But if you have, if somebody has a problem with alcohol abuse, then that's again, paracetamol fitted in a dose of 2 mg per day, on non-steroids, anti-inflammatory drugs, so it's extensive. Hormone replacement therapy. These are permitted medications, sorry. Some drugs are allowed during the trial. So if people taking corticosteroid for their asthma, or taking paracetamol, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, antidepressant drugs, or antihistamines, they are fine for hay fever medication. Hormone replacement therapy is fine, and any medication, herbal therapy, or vitamins, which is not listed as prohibited, they should be fine. The use of rescue medication. So if the patients, for some reason, while they're on trial, and they suffer adverse reaction or adverse events, and the doctor can prescribe any medication which is helping them to resolve that problem, that's fine. We need to let this know. Also, the use of St. George's is not quite. St. George's water is not allowed, and herbal treatment are not allowed. So there are some drugs which are not allowed. These are prohibited medications. These are mostly drugs which are used in chronic inflammation, such as rheumatoid arthritis. The drug is infusion. That's another problem we have, because it has to be prepared here in the hospital and administered through the intravenous infusion, and it will be prepared in the pharmacy, which requires reconstitution, and the study treatment will be provided in such a way so the placebo from the treatment cannot be distinguished by the clinicians or by the people who are treating the patient. So both looks identical. So because they are blinded to the type of the treatment, so when they are seeing the patient and do the visits, they cannot tell which one is receiving the treatment, which one is receiving the placebo. And that way, once we get the results back from everybody, and when we come to analysis, then we can compare the two groups. So we are not biased against one or another. This is the table of assessments. So patients coming to the visits 1 to 8, and at different visits they will be undergoing different examinations and investigation, including vital signs like temperatures and blood pressures and respiratory function tests will be tested, and they'll be asked about any adverse events, adverse reactions they have suffered. if there's any medication they have received from their GPs. We need to record them on a regular basis, and the patients will be tested for HIV and hepatitis B and C. We asked about this to the company, whether it is essential to have patients tested for HIV. This really sort of they haven't come back yet with a satisfactory answer. But this is another question because of the consequences of having somebody tested for HIV. But nowadays, the argument is everybody should be treated at risk in a hospital setting. And HIV testing is kind of become normal standard care in most hospitals. We're also looking at taking blood for genetic markers, pharmacogenetics, because we want to make sure some people are genetically resistant to different types of drugs, and especially immunomodulators. So we want to make sure that those type of patients who are not responding to the treatment, do they carry a specific genetic marker? Also looking at checking the patients are well from time to time and checking their diary to make sure they are complying with the study visits and schedules, and the quality of life is checked different visits, and we're looking at laboratory tests. And then measuring all the parameters we said we measure, which is the biomarkers for the inflammation. So basically we just make sure that the patients are safe, and we're testing blood for those, and we're checking how they feel each time they come, and we do the tests, and we check the functional tests.
So essentially they're going to come in here, have an injection, have all of that on the first day, then have a treatment, and then come back in a week or a day. Is it a day?
They come in for the first visit. It's 2 weeks after the first injection, then every 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then last visit a week, so week 8, week 12, and week 24. So after the last dose, they come back at week 12. That's 4 weeks, and then week 24.
So talking about safety, what are the precautions for safety? Is this previously been tested for toxicity?
This has been tested in other conditions.
In people?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know it's not going to cause a major problem in 2 weeks?
There are a lot of preclinical clinical studies as well done in patients. So this is not first time in patients, so this is not kind of a drug. It's already been tested, and you know it is relatively safe, but we always need to be careful because some people react differently to the drug.
And in that first test, that was about toxicity. You didn't take any notice of whether it worked or not, pharmacologically.
That is the baseline. So because some people, in order to measure something is toxic, you need to have a baseline level, because we measure toxicity either by checking, say, if liver enzymes are going up, because that's one measure of toxicity. So you need to have a baseline level to compare it with. So if you, after taking the drug, the liver enzyme got up about 3 times normal, then that's the kind of toxicity. It gives us some indication that the drug is toxic to the liver. Also, checking the.
But you have no indication. Sometimes you do this sort of thing, and you get a hint from the earlier experiments that it's going to work in the clinical trial, and that's why you do the clinical trial.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we've even taken no interest in that at this stage. This clinical trial is going to be the first time we've looked for an impact on ABPA patients.
Exactly. This is just a very, very new fact.
Where are you going to find 40 fit and healthy persons that are unwell?
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're an unwell person, but you've got to be fit and healthy to go along with the test.
And young.
With only chest problems, nothing.
Yeah. And that is a challenge, because that's a challenge, and that's where you come in. because that is what the company, and talking to us, they say, in order to see the effect of the drug, we need to select these people with this type of profile. Yeah, I agree with you. But when it comes to refining the protocol, maybe we will look at where clinical judgment can be used in order to say, okay, this person may have a condition, but that condition may not interfere with the drug. That condition doesn't have any effect with the drug. And can we include that person if there are other parameters? So that is something for discussion. We need to discuss it with the company. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of exclusions.
Just to clarify, this particular drug, its use would be to treat those individuals where they have a significant inflammatory reaction to the presence of fungus, that inflammatory reaction being expressed as severe asthma.
Let me rephrase. There is a percentage of patients with asthma that do not respond to anti-asthmatic treatment. And in those subgroup of patients, they have found they have got sensitization to fungal. And maybe a fungal infection is behind their asthma. That's why they're not responding to anti-asthmatic treatment. And this drug is targeting those people who are not responding. And that's where this drug comes in.
If it were to be successful, ultimately patients then could be treated with it, but they would probably still need to take an antifungal preparation as well if they've got actively growing fungus, presumably.
If they're actively growing fungus, and then if we can control, because asthma is a quite debilitating condition, and if the asthma is not controlled, it will really sort of can kill the person. If we get to a stage where the asthma is controlled, then subsequent treatment will be introduced, and then to control the fungus. We also, during the tests, we identify which type of fungal sensitization is happening. Then we're looking for the indicators of which type, and maybe at this stage of the trial, we're not using any combination with antifungal. But if this drug becomes a standard drug and comes into the market and licensed for that treatment, then there's a scope to use in conjunction with antifungal. But we don't use antifungal at this clinical trial at the same time because it will obscure the effect of the drug. And it may not show, how effective the drug is being, because if you are using antifungal, and antifungal themselves, they produce toxicity, and that will confuse us from finding out if the toxicity is due to this drug or is this due to that antifungal drug.
Well, that's a lot to take on board.
I hope you find it useful in terms of getting you some information, because I appreciate when you are asked to participate in a clinical trial or treatment, you are not given enough information or adequate information to tell you how this drug works in effect, and where it works, and what is the downside or what is the advantage. So I hope it has been useful. And through Graham, and obviously you can give us feedback and let us know how you feel about a clinical trial like this, and do you feel that we should be really, if there's any area we haven't looked into or we need to focus on, you're quite welcome to comment on those areas.
Is there any, this is the patient would have to come every couple of weeks and come back here, which is for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of visits. So you're really looking, you're only going to end up with people from this around this area, I would imagine.
Greater Manchester probably, yes, because of the visiting time, and also the patients have to come to the hospital because of the infusion, so they stay in the hospital. And they stay for a while because we need to take blood after the infusion for. So we're talking about spending about 4 hours stay in the hospital. That's a burden. I understand that could be a burden.
Would you be doing it? Would you be offering to do it in an evening or at weekends for people who work for a living, for example?
That's a good question. Actually, we haven't thought about it weekends. The only
7-day-a-week service. Isn't it?
Yeah. The only problem we have is because it's a study drug, we need to have all other resources available in the hospital in case something goes wrong. So we need to be careful. We need to have access to all the facilities. So if we need to do an emergency lab test, or we need to have results back as soon as possible. So we need to have other staffs around. So if this for weekend, that's probably not feasible for this study. Also, in the other times, it's very difficult. So we're trying to find space for these patients during their stay here, and we're trying to cover everything really doing that.
So you see, I'm 68, and I meet all that. I am. I'm right. But I meet that criteria with asthma, chronic asthma, and APPA.
Yeah.
But because I'm a certain age, I'm retired, I've got the time, but you've cut me out.
I don't want to cut you out. I absolutely don't want to cut you out. We probably is if you put yourself forward, tell your consultants you want to participate in this trial, and we absolutely want to have a chat and to see if you do not meet any of the exclusion criteria, and absolutely fine. In that case, whether we really need to change the age range, if people like yourself meeting all the inclusion criteria and none of the exclusion criteria, and age is the only factor, I don't see why we should increase that age.
You got out of that very
But you come off antifungals and you come off anti-asthma drugs, do you?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Well, not anti-asthma drugs. The anti-asthma drugs, there are some medications. Yeah. So whatever treatment you are on for your asthma, you will be staying on it for asthma.
So just to clarify, the mechanism by which you put yourself forward then? Yes.
When this study obviously is not set up yet, once it becomes set up, if you are attending the ABPA clinic here, we will be in the ABPA clinics, and we want to know is how many patients we could get. We aim to recruit 15 patients for the trial from this center. It's a multi-center trial, so we will not be center.
So if you're attending clinic here, then you'll be asked for...
If you want to volunteer, if you have an ABPA, you can drop me an email and I will keep a list. And then when we come to open the study, we will contact you and then we can ask you to, we will send you the information and you can come to the clinic and on your next visit and we'll approach you.
So that's azad.aziz@manchester.ac.uk. For all the people who are also online as well. Hundreds of people. How much email space have you got?
Thank you so much for your attention.
That's great. I think any more questions? No? I think we need a quick break, don't we?
I'll beat you to it.
Yeah, it's already out the door. Okay, thank you very much for an interesting talk, and thank you. Right, we're moving on to another subject which involves Neil. But we could have a 10-minute cup of tea first. Is that fine? Yeah. Okay. 10 minutes back in. Right. Now, I was approached by Professor Denning. So we've got a very fantastic patient who wants to tell us about having one of these feeding tubes fitted and what life's like when you've had one. Now, I've never heard of one of these, and I believe we've got about half a dozen patients in the service who use one of these. So I'll just go through a quick description that I've found, and Neil can chime in. Neil, by the way, can chime in if I say anything completely wrong. Okay, so PEG stands for percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy. Okay, the plastic tube that goes in your stomach. A PEG tube is a feeding tube which passes through the abdominal wall into the stomach so that that food, water and medication can be given without swallowing. Okay. It's used in people of all ages. In our particular service, it's when people have CPA or ABPA and they find it difficult to keep weight on and they gradually lose weight because swallowing food can be difficult with some of the medications and so on. And we bypass that situation by passing food directly into the stomach. It's used on children and babies unable to swallow or eat enough and need long-term artificial feeding. Because you don't. It's on. It's okay. It's all right. It's going out. You're not hearing it, but everybody else is.
Okay.
Hang on. Turn all the way up. That's it. Then everyone can hear you because there's lots of people watching on the internet. Okay. You can hold it slightly away from you.
Right. It's not only for when you can't eat. It also, you know, when you're eating and you get short of breath, it really makes life a lot easier. Because I was finding that, yeah, I can eat, I can swallow, but I was finding that when I get halfway through a meal, I'm out of breath. And then I didn't want next to my dinner. So that really does help. I put it on in the night, and I have a little bit to eat during the day, and it really does help me. And I have put weight on, I have gained weight. I know I look a bit skinny like, but I have put weight on.
The PEG tube is inserted during a minor operation in the endoscopy department. Do you think it was minor?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I went in, they put a cannula in my arm, they took me into endoscopy room, laid me on a bed, put me on my side, put like a thing round my mouth to stop me biting, put the jug into my arm. That was the last thing I remember. Woke up going back onto the ward. Not a problem. Half an hour. And when you've had it done, there is a little bit of discomfort for a week. I'll not say there isn't. But it's just like having your ear pierced or not like that, you know what I mean? Human body's not designed to have 6 inch of plastic hanging out of it. So, yeah, no problem. It's quite an easy procedure, not to be frightened of. And once it's in and it heals, I don't even know I've got it in. I drive, I go with bath, get it shower, not a problem. Roll over in bed, not a problem. Don't bother me, don't hurt, not a problem. If anybody wants to have a look at it, I'll show you it, no problem.
Okay, in the last several years, if it was well cared for. So how do you care for your tube?
Right, I care for it by, well, I'll show you. Can you all see? Let me turn around a bit. Sorry, if you run like go round in circles. What I do is this, we've got the peg in there, there's a clip on it, and you can move that clip up and down, you sort of like. I won't. What you do is this, just unclip it, twist it round, shoot it in and out. Because it is part of you, but they don't want it to become part, they don't want it to adhere, in case you have to have it out. If you have to have it out and it's adhered, then it makes life a lot harder. To clean it, you just get a non-scented wipe, just wipe it round, do what you've got to do, get the clip, put it back on. Put it back in. Can't see. Got it. And then just clip it up. And then just nip it up a little bit. And that's it.
Does the tube have to be cleansed or changed at all?
No, you cleanse the tube every day.
Okay.
What you do is you peg it through with water,
Yeah.
put your feed on, run your feed through, And then what you do is this, you take your feed off,
Yeah.
flush it through again with boiled water, warm boiled water,
Okay.
and then just, I'll show you how to do it when we get to that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's dead easy, takes 2 minutes. The
So
only
then
thing is
keeping
this-
it clean, you don't have to change the fittings or the tube.
Oh
That's
no, you just,
permanent.
when you take the top off,
Yeah.
just wipe it round inside.
Okay.
Always look at it this way, don't pull out down that tube, or near that tube, you won't put it in your mouth. You won't put a bucket knife in your mouth, would you, or a bucket fork? So just make sure you put all your stuff in, that it's new.
Keep
All that on there is only one use.
Mm.
Goes in the recycling bin, goes in your laundry bin, it's all one use, don't use it twice. Deliver to your house, not a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Cheers. Okay. Give me any idea how long you're going to have it? Is that going to be there for good, or until you just put your weight on? Not told you.
No.
Depends how you're going to wait, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. So you eat as normal, with as much as you can.
Yeah.
And you take a feed through your tube.
Yeah.
The two together.
The food I'm eating, I'm only taking like 1,000 calories,
Yeah.
and I need 2,500.
Okay.
So what I do is on a night, I set it up,
Yeah.
and that gives me 15,000 calories. 15,000 calories over a night,
Right.
which is my 2,500 calories.
Okay.
Whereas, if I wasn't doing that, I'd be surviving on 1,000 calories. My dog
Yeah,
eats
no.
more. My dog eats more than that.
So was it the medication? If it's not too personal a question, is it the medication that? What is that? Why you can't eat?
No, it's just because I get out of that. My lung function is only 24%.
Right.
And my left lung is practically, you may as well just check it out and chuck it in the bin. So I'm really working on my right lung. So as you know yourself, walking, I never realised how much air you need to eat. And you need a lot of air to eat. And if you've only got a 24% capacity, by the time you've had 4 or 5 forksfuls, you've had enough. Because you're breathing. So it does. So you are getting the calories that you need with a peg.
Okay. You don't have any medication through your peg tube.
No, I just take 1 tablet a day for my Aspergillosis, which I just take.
Okay, that's what we've just talked about. Takes about 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes to put it in. You're under sedation, so you weren't completely anaesthetised.
No, I know how it's put in.
Yeah. So but you don't know anything about it once
No.
you're under there.
No.
A bit like having a bronchoscopy. Have you ever had a bronchoscopy?
Aye.
Is it similar? Or you're more unconscious for this?
That's what I'm saying.
That's it. Okay. Flex, the end is used to place the tube. So it goes down the throat, down through your mouth, down the throat, into the stomach, and that's how they get it out.
Now what they do is they put the endoscope down, and then what they do is they have a look round, make sure everything's alright, and then the peg nurse who's into it, it'll insert a needle through your stomach wall, into your stomach. She'll put a piece of string in, surgical string, she'll grab hold of it, and the doctor will pull the string out of your mouth. She'll tie the peg to it, and then she just pulls it down, out through oil, cuts it off, puts all fittings on it, and that's it. You don't know that, honestly. You're all going, and there's a woman sat up back there going, no, it's not that bad, honestly. It's not that bad, no.
You used to say that.
My advice to anybody that is recommended to have it, go have it done. It's not a problem. It will help you.
This is the tube. So this is the bit you've just been showing.
Yes.
And that's the bit that's in your tummy. In
Yes.
your stomach, over there. And that's the bit that's outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a lifesaver, isn't it? If you
Yeah.
wouldn't get enough nutrients in your body.
Don't just
if you
fade
didn't
away.
have it.
You'd be like anorexic, wouldn't you? You just
Yeah.
fade away. So
I wonder if they use it to treat anorexic people, maybe. So there it is. There's the stomach. There's the round bit which is inside the stomach, and the tube just goes a short distance to outside. And there's the triangular bit that you've just been talking about on the left-hand side. So it's very simple, very short distance, very simple. And as you said, if I remember rightly, yes, needs to be cleaned on a daily basis. After 2 weeks, the external fixation will need to be released. The shaft can be pushed into the stomach and turned daily, which is what you've just been doing, which is what you just talked about. Needs to be turned, like you just said, because that end, oops, that
end of the day to you otherwise.
That bit will get stuck.
Yeah.
And I suppose if it starts to get stuck, it might start to block and whatever. So.
If it does get blocked, there's only one thing that will actually unblock it.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, the Schweppes tonic water.
Schweppes tonic water?
Yeah.
That actually unblocks.
That's what you want.
No gin in it.
Well, we're not going to admit that today, are we? Really me. Really me.
Is that fizzy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it.
Yeah. Don't put pop down it or don't like that because it pop crystallises. And it can block it, so you just need plain Schweppes tonic water. Just put it in your syringe, peg it through. That's done.
How long's it been in place now?
I've had mine in since April.
Beginning of April.
Beginning of April.
No problems.
No.
How much weight have you put on, you think?
About 12-14 pounds.
Wow.
So I'm not going to get a big solid eat, am I?
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's all this sort of, it's pre-prepared liquids.
Well, they're all different ones.
So you get them in with these syringes.
What you do is this. These are syringes for cleaning it out. One use, that's all. And then you've got your feed, which everybody has different feeds. I'm on Ensure, which is like, I put 4 bottles of that into that. Just put it in, and then what I do is I get a feeding kit, which is this one. Just open it up, put it on top of your bottle, and then what you do is this, I'll show them.
Yeah.
Can you lock that for me, because you didn't multiply the Popeye?
We'll see.
You take it on the head, it's
Oh,
Crohn's got a new name.
Oh, yeah.
I've just copied it. Oh, I did.
Just like that.
Got it.
That's it. I should have got them, me. Anyways, this. I would have co-signed for 25 years for sharing holidays. If I was sat with it back to you, I'd charge you for hours. Anyways, that's the feed that they use in Manchester, but they don't use it from where I come from, because I come from Barnsley. So that's what they use in Manchester. But where I come from, they use this. And this bottle. What you do is this. You get this, put your stuff in it. And what you do is this. Put that on there, like that. Tighten it up. Because if you don't, there's a talent of don't trying to get out of your carpet, so you don't get out of it. Hang it up. Open your machine, and then if you look, it's got like a little handle on here. You'll see. What you do is this, clip it round, pull it down, so it clips in.
It's quite a contraption.
Shut the door, turn it on, till it comes on. say infusion. So what you do is this, press that, and that little wheel will go around, and it will take the stuff out of there, through the peg, till it gets to the end, and it will stop. What you do is this, get one of these, come on with this, usually. Didn't find anything that was a call with this, not slow down.
Don't forget as well, Neil, that your dietitian will set your machine up
Ah,
so you
sure,
know
aye.
exactly how much each patient wants.
Sit on it.
Getting there. Used to do these.
That's not it, that's not one, is it? It's another one.
They don't have a big out of
Right.
Got it?
I don't know, if it had been separating £10
I had that
notes, you'd have had it done in a
And what you do is this. You have different fittings, for different bottles, right? So with mine, what I need to do is I put that one on, then I put that one on, like that. And what I do is I get this syringe, fill it with water. I'm going to put this one on my wall.
How many times a day do you have to do that?
When I go to bed.
Just what the one?
When I go to bed. Put it on at 10 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock next morning, it's finished. If I won't ever lay in till 9, I put it on at 11. And what you do is this. Get your peg, take that out, full of water, screw it on, undo that clip. Push your water through, close the clip back up. Make sure you close the clip, because if you don't, you'll all be drowned. Because it'll just, water will just leak out. Take it off. Get that. Put it on. That machine's reset itself, so you have to go back to north. So go to the third one, which is infusion. Go to the next one. And that tells me 50 milligram, filling with 50 millilitres an hour. So if you're 500, it takes 10 hours. You can reset that till 60, 70, 30, 20, and you go on the machine. And then next morning, the machine will alarm when it's finished. When the pipe gets empty to here, it'll alarm. All you do is just turn it off, take the peg off, change your water, put it on end, open the clip, push it through, close the clip, put the end back on. Open that. Turn it off here. Chuck it in.
Neil,
Yes?
do you feel full when you've had that afterwards? Do you have any sensation of fullness?
No, not really. If you have, say you have your meal about, your last meal about 8 o'clock, you've got to give yourself a couple of hours.
Before you...
Otherwise, it does feel like you've overeaten. But usually no.
No. And when you wake up in the morning, you feel as though you can eat your breakfast?
Yeah. Or there's another way you can do it with your feet. If you don't want to put it in overnight, get a bottle, undo it, put a syringe on, take the plunge out and just pour it in, and it'll infuse itself. But I find that, I do find that filling. It tends to sort of like...
Lie heavily.
Yeah,
All
like-
I used to use Ensure drinks, but I
Yeah.
used to use it as a drink.
Yeah, and I find that if I have it like direct,
Yeah, it's quite
obviously
filling.
it is quite heavy.
Yeah.
So I find that the peg is a lot easier. And then they give things like this. Roll shot.
Yeah.
It's vanilla. Careful only when it's been in the fridge. You know, I take 2 of them a day. Gives me more calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I say, it's not hard work. You know what I mean? You don't think, oh my neck, I've got it. Not even.
Can you feel it going into your stomach?
No.
No.
The only thing you can feel is if I use boiled water. So what I do is my good lady will put kettle on about 9:30 and make a drink. And then what I do is about 10 o'clock when kettles cool down a bit, I just put some in a cup, fill it up, do it. Be careful because if you use too hot water, you don't feel that.
Yeah.
If
Feel like hot mashed potato.
Oh, you're not doing
Slide in. Have you ever done that and you're like...
Oh, right. Yeah, you can still take a bath. When I come here, they said I couldn't have a bath for about 10 days. When we're living in Yorkshire, the bed nurse from Yorkshire was here, she told me I couldn't have a bath for 3 weeks. Now there were no way I won't be without a bath for 3 weeks. 10 days, you know what I mean? I was like a slug, I was leaving the chair with me when I went, because I didn't have to think. So, you can get a bath, but you only need like water to here.
Yeah.
After 3 weeks, and it's all adhered inside,
Yeah.
I just get an ice bath, be up to here,
Yeah.
not a problem.
Because there's only so much Febreze you can use, isn't there, Neil?
There is got that. But what it is when you first have it done, when they pull the peg in, like the pegs like that, they want your stomach to wheel to your stomach wall.
Yeah.
So that there's like a seal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Sometimes you get like a little bit of liquid leaking out, but not much. You know what I mean? If you have like I had Coke earlier, it comes out of peg. You know what I mean?
When you had a Coke, you drank a Coke.
I drank a Coke.
Do you have to have it checked regularly?
No, I don't know. Dietitian comes to see me, don't she? But peg nurse, no. They'll come and see you after a couple of weeks to make sure you're cleaning it right and,
Yes.
and you're spinning it round and all that, but apart from that, no, not a problem. No problem at all. Has anybody here been recommended to have one, by the way?
Two things happening. One or two people who do from here that might be recommended one at some time.
Well, go for it.
Yeah. No, there's no downside. You're totally
No,
totally
no.
recommended.
Ah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent.
Are you doing a tour of all hospitals doing this?
Famous Neil.
I'll open all I can. I'd rather line him ringing me up and saying, we're in London next week. I've done my mileage use for
In
years.
February we're in Portugal. What do you think?
That would be that.
I'm not sure about all this. I saw a peg touring bus outside.
Yeah, but you understand me, you're not like me. How much it affect life? It doesn't.
Nothing. No impact at all on your life.
No, it doesn't impact up. No.
So you're feeling better because you've got more energy.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
You can go swimming, you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
No other problems at all.
No.
Brilliant.
So how long did it take you, Neil, to learn all that? I popped out, so you might have said already, but how long did it take for them to teach you how to use all that? Because it looked like a nightmare to me, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's quite a procedure,
It takes you
isn't it?
about maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. 'cause
Really? I'd have been ringing them back up. Sorry, which stage was it?
You will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I went home and I thought, oh, this is easy, this. When I looked at
You're like,
I got a bottle of stuff down my trousers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very, very greasy.
Right.
So if you get it on carpet,
Oh dear.
I don't know, it's
To get a dog or a cat to lick it up.
People don't make mistakes. We're not human, are we?
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
We're not computers. You know what I mean? But,
There's not much difference between the Lancastrian brew and the Yorkshire brew. No.
No. And I'm not very technical in minded, you know what I mean? I'm still having trouble with ice switches. Not into.
Does that have fibre in it?
Pardon?
Does that have fibre in it?
It says all sorts in it.
Does it?
It's got all
Yeah, I
sorts.
think the list, I think you'll find the list is massive, it's huge, yeah.
The calories
Yeah,
are
yeah.
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? Yeah, and the vitamins are yeah.
A's, B's,
Yeah.
D's, E's, C's.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they've got just about everything they need, haven't they, in them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it maintains body function.
Yeah, because obviously vitamins you only need a tiny amount, so, and then the protein, my mum
You're
had
not getting enough, it's what you need.
Yeah.
Not being figured out.
Yeah.
But you can get your feed from chemists. But others deliver all the pipes, they ring me up, how many you got left? And they'll say, right, we'll send you one supply, which is like 30 of each, of everything. And it just comes. That I pick up from chemist. Each box holds 6 days, each carton holds 6 days. So I go pick 5 cases up. And then I've got my syringes and my adapters and my bits and bobs. It's a different adapter for this one. Notice it's a little bit smaller. It has a different adapter. It screws into end here, and the big end just screws onto the feeding tube, onto the feeder.
And can you eat and drink as normal with the, the nutritional foods? You can eat anything you want.
It tells you what's in it.
When you first have it
You've got a couple of
done,
those.
your dietitian will actually tell you what you need, what's your workout, what
Yeah, yeah.
She'll say workout, she'll ask you what you
pharmacy
eat.
will actually make that up, the bags up.
She'll ask you what you're eating, what do you eat for breakfast, do you have a bit of dinner, do you have a tea time?
Yeah.
What she'll do is you'll tell her, then she'll work out and she'll say, right, you're on 1,000 calories, so you're 1,500 short. So she'll say, right, 1,500, calculate 4 of them, or 5 of them, or whatever.
That's it.
Oh well.
That's it. I think you've covered everything.
I hope you improved now and put a bit more weight on.
Well, before I, how long was this, 4 years? I used to weigh 11.5 stone, didn't I? And I gradually lost weight, and then eventually it was a case of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gotta do something. And I didn't know.
Brilliant. Well, we've got all that recorded. So if we've got anyone who's thinking about having one of them done, we can use your words to sell it to them. So thank you very much for a really interesting talk.
Yeah.
Don't forget Portugal.
Yeah.
Give us some blood.
I'm just going to talk about Portugal.
We don't have blood, I wouldn't. Anybody want a mascot? What I mean, anybody?
I think we've asked everything.
Because there is a drug that you can take that increases your appetite. You didn't find that any good then?
That's it.
You didn't have it? Okay.
It might be that Neil needed more weight than the drug could catch up, because I think that's just for stimulating your appetite, and the point Neil was making that he can't. Yeah, I was just going to say.
So
Too
difficult to
breathless.
eat.
Yeah.
I mean, I can have a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you should watch me eat a meal,
Yeah.
and you'd think,
If it's
and then
too
you
big,
come
it
from the street.
Yeah.
Then I want to be saying, jelly, that you walk.
Yeah.
I was sympathise with that. Can't wait.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
But I've got a little bit of it, so.
Look behind you, Neil.
There you go.
There you go.
This is one of our other groups. Right. As you're a coach driver, you could stay with your back to me and then I can carry on. But you go and sit over there. Well, I've got two more minutes to talk about. I'm going to show you some videos.
No problem. 20 odd years, that one.
So, speaking of Portugal,
Thank you.
I will, it's pretty good, isn't it?
Are you alright, yeah?
Aye.
Move the chair out.
this is our major
Yes.
conference.
Yes, we said it.
And we've got to start publicising it a little bit now. So, as the first thing, it's the 8th conference of its type. They happen every 2 years. This one's happening on the 1st to the 3rd of February next year, and it's in Portugal. As far as I know, I am due to go there and broadcast from it. So, we should be having some sort of a patient thing over there. I know we've got people volunteering to translate to Portuguese for us, so it's not quite taken shape exactly what we're doing, but there will be some sort of.
We do actually have
patient
a couple of Portuguese patients.
thing. We do, and they come from Portugal.
Indeed, they do. As you'd expect.
Will there be a planned sort of thing that people could look at to travel there to do that? Or is going to be a set thing that you can get on?
So patients can take themselves over to do it.
Yes.
What normally happens is something like this. I think we charge scientists and doctors £700-800 to go. Patients, we'll do it for we'll do it for nothing.
Do it for nothing.
How about carers?
Yeah, you can all get in for nothing, exactly like in Manchester.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Sounds like Chris knows a bit more about it than me, actually.
Well,
That's what we will be
it's
doing.
just I think David talked about whether we should have a patient meeting, and I said, as we've got a couple of Portuguese patients, it'd be daft not to.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we had a couple from Portugal, didn't we, a few months ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that chap.
And it's so we've got 3 Portuguese patients. So I think it'd be mad not to, because
Yeah.
obviously I think they'd probably be interested, providing they can make the dates. But
There's somebody who likes going to Portugal talking. Right,
Yeah.
not got much time, so Fungal Awareness, Disease Awareness Week, you may know just a bit about, if you don't. The Centre for Disease Control in America this has come out a bit out of the blue. They've got funding to do an annual week. It's going to happen every year. They're going to run it in America, or start off in America. But we want to do stuff to take advantage of the event and present Aspergillosis. So if you go on their website, there is Aspergillosis, but it's not prominent. They're mainly talking about all the other fungal diseases that people can get. So we're going to boost up the Aspergillosis. It's very short notice this year, so we haven't been able to do a huge amount. But what I thought we would do, I can do this in 4 minutes, I think. The Fungal Infection Trust website, okay, will host the information that we'll put out onto Facebook and Twitter and any other social media. CDC might help us in putting it onto their various groups as well. We're going to do 1 page a day. We've got a particular company to come up with a series of awareness videos, and those are the ones I want your opinion on now. Let's see if we can get to run. Okay. This was sort of a combined idea by myself and Chris. And it
Zoinks.
Zoinks. I think I need to sign in again. Is that a mistake? Yes.
I'm not watching private videos, sorry.
They're not that good. Here we go. Now, if you think of that, you might be surprised. Look a little closer into my lungs. There's the X-ray. And incurable disease. Okay, that's the old one. There is actually sound, but for some reason we're not getting much sound through
Just
these.
about, I could just hear a bit of something there.
It's on full blast there, so I don't know why it's so quiet. So, that was sort of our idea, because patients were saying it's really annoying that people don't believe we're ill. We look too well, essentially. And we got that consistently from quite a lot of people. So Chris and I came up with this kind of concept of, you look fine, but if you look inside and the lungs, there's a major issue. And next time someone tells you they've got aspergillosis, think about this image, is the message. They haven't quite put that across properly here. So we've asked for changes in the lettering a little, the words. That's the same. Here we wanted to say, I have aspergillosis, an incurable fungal disease that can be treated, something like that. And then the next one was, yes, it was your phrase, wasn't it? You came up with the next phrase. What was your phrase? I can't remember.
I said, I wanted it to be, I have aspergillosis. What was the other bit I gave you?
It was.
What's the next slide?
The next time you.
Oh, so so things may not be as it seems, kind of thing.
It was inside is another story.
Tells a different story. That was
tells
it.
a different story.
Yeah.
So,
because I was bothered that if they generalised it, people would panic and think, oh, I got aspergillosis, and and then everybody's going to be panicking and not understand what it meant.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to say, I have aspergillosis, and what's inside is a different story. Yeah. So that people would recognise that that's what they're coping with.
We thought this sort of says everybody might have aspergillosis, the way
they've worded it. Yeah. And I thought that was a bit dangerous, to be honest.
Is that statistic right? 1 in 100?
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Difficult to believe, isn't it? That's only about 600,000 people.
But you're talking of a form of aspergillosis, not one.
Not one.
All of them.
So
if you think of it like that. So.
I was sent into Binderfield last year, and I sat there because they put me in resource. About 2 hours later, the consultant of the A&E department actually came in and said to me, her exact words were this: I am sorry, Mr. Robshaw, for being so long, but I had to look up your complaint because I did not have a clue what it was.
Well, there you go. So that's
Google it.
That's why we're trying to get these.
Well, that's what the point of this campaign is. The catchphrase for this campaign is something along the lines of, think fungus. If you have a patient who you've been treating, they've had multiple types of treatment, and they're not getting better, think about they might have a fungal infection. That's the single message that the CDC are trying to project.
Couldn't we set something up like, I know it's going to from one extreme to other, but like Marie Curie or Macmillan, where there is really something out there prominent, so people not only who's got it but are aware of it, like for carers, helpers,
that would be great. We
and all such as that, where it's not in your face, but because at the end of the day, people with cancer get so much support.
Yeah, we've had all these
and
conversations.
we haven't got no support.
That's the problem, you see. That's what I said. If you say cancer, people recognise it. But if you say Aspergillus, people lose interest in what you're talking about.
At the end of the
but
day,
it's going to take time to break down them barriers and obviously get people to understand it. We need to get the doctors to understand it first before you get out to the rest of the world, and that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Alright, so okay. This is the second one, which,
I like this one. I think it's neat, this one.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
That one's a bit quick.
It's quick, but it gets to the
I'll
point.
try it again.
Interesting.
We're advised that they've got to be very quick.
Yeah.
So when will these be available?
On the
On the
full week.
internet?
Yeah.
We're
14.
going to put them in as many places as we can.
Right.
Oops, can't time. They're actually working on these at the moment, so I'm a bit dubious as to whether, they will keep working. There we go. So, you all enjoy being in the park. Did you know hairs of rotting leaves can cause aspergillosis, a deadly fungal disease that can affect people with a compromised immune system? Find out more, and that's where I will put the information everything else. Yeah. So that's quite straightforward. This one, about dishwashers. Did you know if you open your dishwasher mid-cycle, the steam may contain fungus? This can cause a serious fungal infection, including Aspergillosis in your lungs. Find out more. Now, that's an eye-catching story about something that's in everybody's kitchen, or most people's kitchens. It's not, the risk is tiny, but it's a story that people recognise, and that's the idea, is to link the two.
Drying clothes on radiators can cause it as well.
It's coming up, Neil.
Coming up.
Be patient.
He's
doing as quick as he can.
The yolk caused by drying and washing indoors can cause the growth of fungus. That fungus can cause a deadly disease in your lungs called Aspergillosis. Find out more. So,
you need to have these on a loop on the screen in clinic.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I've asked about that. I think they should have a rolling thing.
Have a rolling thing, because a lot of the patients who come, because they don't come to these meetings and look at extra information, they don't realise half of those things that they do at home. And about the pillows.
Doctor's surgeries run that kind of thing on a...
Yeah, I did when I came now. I've been coming for a while now.
What about sticking it on the side of a bus?
Yes, that's possible.
Or on the back of the bus?
You know, there was an article by Professor Denning in the Mail just recently about coffee pots, percolators.
Well, it's anything at all.
Yeah,
Coffee pots.
The steam from coffee machines.
What, like this one?
I kept that,
There you go.
There we go.
yeah.
Kitchen plants create the condition for fungus to grow. Coffee pots. Some of these fungi can cause serious illnesses, including Aspergillosis.
I never drank coffee since.
The original slide talked about coffee pots, but that article is really about anything producing steam.
Yeah.
And they just,
Machines.
but again, it's recognisable. A lot of people think, well, maybe I ought to be concerned about that, and they take notice. And that's the
Put it
idea.
on my hand, does it matter?
No. There's one more,
Give me a cup, Sally.
which is not.
I got to look
Do it
up,
as
right?
well, yeah.
I got it back to the room, so.
No, hang on. It is in here. Now this is a slightly more, a stronger image. There you go. Okay, we have actually produced. This is Chris's idea from an image we were given last Friday, which is a great big image from a mobile phone. So you can make big things out of big images. And it's someone's had a bout of hemoptysis, and that's what they've coughed into their sink. Now that is incredibly unusual. So that is an image, because it's shocking, it's bright red. And is this what you see in your sink after coughing? And if it is, this is intended for GP surgeries, and possibly patients who want the shirt to be the same. This is the issue to their GPs. And act on Aspergillosis fungal week. So that's more aimed at specialist audiences like doctors and things like that. We had the biggest debate over this with the publicity company who thought this was much too strong an image. But everybody on Facebook really liked this image and thought we should use it. What do you think? I think this will make an impact and make an impression. So, yeah.
I mean, they use it around for TV ads for people with
That was my own.
Yeah, I know, because I kind of wrestled with it a bit after it, thinking it would be powerful, and like you say, a lot of the adverts. But I do have this battle with myself that I think there's too many scary things, people who worry, and I was thinking, is it right, is it wrong? But as Graham said, a lot of the patients seem to think it was okay, and as you say, they do put adverts like that all the time. But it's the GPs, it's getting them to recognise that. For me, they always, you've got a chest infection, or it's such a thing, and they're not acting on the fact that that's more serious, and it's that for me.
My first doctor who I saw at Ponting, when I found out I got COPD, for 16 months he kept saying, I think you've got a fungal infection, but we'll try this, but we'll try that. and I lost 3 stone in a year. And I said to him, I've lost weight, and he said, you know what he said to me? It's normal in your case. Going back to another thing.
Yeah.
The Stagecoach runs over 60,000 buses.
Yeah.
Arriva own over 20,000 buses. I know the bus industry and the coach industry quite well. If I wrote to Stagecoach and Arriva, one or two other companies that I know, and I put it across to them and they agreed to put something on back of their buses, could you compile something that would get the point across if I could get them to do it?
We could come up with something. We could, for something like that, which would cover a lot of ground.
Because they run the Stagecoach run buses in
See, I think
Wales,
something
they run them in-
like the
in
Leeds one would be
Cornwall.
quite good on a bus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the old.
They run, yeah, but you've not just found you've got people who driving about in cars, they go back of a
Yeah,
bus, they say,
yeah.
oh, look at that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I think
No,
you
it's
just
like
have to be
traffic.
selective about what images you put on the bus, I think. But I think something like the leaves in autumn, I think
Yeah.
would be quite a good
Yeah,
one
that'd
to
be
have.
fantastic,
Yeah.
They would tell you what, they wouldn't allow you to
Yeah.
put a pair of lungs on that's like
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
dropping to
thinking. Some of
mix
it
or,
might be
or whatever,
a
but
bit
they
too
wouldn't
thingy
certainly
for
allow you to put something
public
on.
transport.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great,
yeah, yeah.
great.
On that Portugal thing, would it be okay you
Still going to Portugal,
Okay,
yeah.
it's quite-
Packed his bags.
Eve stayed at home?
Carers are very well.
You can go.
Do that.
You think that journey would be too arduous for her? You know, that you
I'm
could-
I'm thinking of a carers conference.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking 'cause-
That's all right.
I'm looking because my carer is my missus, so I'm looking really.
So that, we better call it a day. We're talking
I need oxygen.
next month, the 1st of September,
That's right, yeah.
Would I be able to go on that?
Chris's son is going to be giving us a tour.
Yeah, well, I'll go and meet him up, yeah, he's promised now, he's promised,
He
I'll
was
tell
meant to be
him.
doing today, but
He was meant to be doing it today, but he was a bit slow getting off, he was busy making pies, I told you that. Yeah, so I'll prompt him tonight about that. Yeah, I don't know.
So that's it.
I think.
Thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you.
Car parking tickets.